Welcome back on in to the latest episode of the StricklyNFL podcast, the Jaxson Dart edition. That is quite nerve-wracking for me, quite nerve-wracking for Giants fans, right? But what are you gonna do? Not be excited for it? Like, of course you're gonna be
Yeah.
excited for it. With me today, good friend of the pod, Luca at Nick's Tape __. That is two underscores. You all know him already. He will also be taking part in the Jaxson Dart experience on this upcoming Sunday. Luca, tell me how you feeling.
You know, as a fan, I'm feeling very excited. Like, not even has nothing to do really with what we saw from Russ on Sunday or even over the first 3 weeks of the season. But the fact that we get to have our first round draft pick come in, a guy that the front office believes in, for better or for worse, we'll get to that later. Um, and a guy you traded up for into the first round, you can't not be excited for this opportunity. He looked pretty good from what we saw in camp and in preseason in his limited time, but it's a good time, man. It's an okay time to be a fan, especially if it's going to be another lost season. Might as well see what he's got, and surely he'll be better than Russ has been over 3 weeks.
Yeah, um, I think, and we could just actually before we hop all the way into it, FanDuel is the official sponsor of this podcast. Um, all the bets that I place, all the odds that we talk about, that we will talk about on this show, are all coming from FanDuel. So you can go check them out. The best betting platform that's out there, obviously. Um, and then the Strickland has Patreon. So if you are viewing this as a preview episode on either YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever kind of good stuff you use, you can find the full episode of this podcast behind the $9 Strickland Patreon tier. We also have $3, $6, $15, I believe also $25 and $50 tiers, which gives you access to numerous different things. $6 gets you access to the Discord, which is like by far the coolest Discord that I'm in.
It's a
I
great time to get in, by the way. Nick's season is right around the corner.
Yeah,
Nick's content day was today. Tap
yeah.
in.
We got all the Yabusele stuff today. How special is the dancing bear? You know,
Clarkson Aura,
what happened? Oh, Clarkson Aura, yeah, Clarkson Aura.
Wingstop,
We got Josh Finger.
Josh Hart finger gate.
So if you want to lose your head, or if you want to run around like a headless chicken, is what I meant to say. You can do that in there with us, and you'll have a great time. You could also lose your head about the Giants with me.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's great. Other stuff with the $9 podcast is you get access to Schwinn's bi-weekly podcast, the Stricken Roll, and it's a bunch of articles, percentage off on memorabilia, or excuse me, percentage off on merchandise from the store and all that type of good stuff. So, without further ado, I think we'll do the rant on like the cap usage and stuff after.
I think that's a good idea.
So, first off, man, I just want to go into a little bit of how I think the offense is going to change. I think some of the things that you saw in the preseason, the Giants were great in the screen game. That was one. I think the Giants used the middle of the field really well on like slants, drags, some deeper crossers. And I think they put defenders in conflict with concepts a lot more than they did throughout the start of this season. Obviously, this play has gotten a lot of publicity because it was embarrassing and on Sunday Night Football. But first down at the goal line or near the goal line, the Giants essentially ran kind of like just 4 stick routes right to the goal line with Slayton and Malik and all them. I don't think that's a play that gets called with Jaxson Dart. Like I don't know why I've had this weird thing where in the preseason, even when Russ was in the game compared to when Dart was in the game, I felt even then the play calling was just schematically better, like based on what coverage the defense was in and just the creativity behind what they were calling. If you guys remember, they had that fake pitch play where they faked the pitch to the right. Dulcich ran the kind of like seam kind of postish route. where he broke over the middle, and like you look at that type of play and you're like, Brian Daboll, the offensive schemer who knows quarterbacks, right, and can set you up to make these layup throws that are going to move the ball. And then you watch what's happened or especially over weeks 1 and 3. But even week 2 wasn't really a great schematic game. I feel like the playbook will open up, and that's a weird thing to say when there's a rookie quarterback stepping in for a veteran like Russell Wilson. I almost said Russell Westbrook, but it really feels like that's kind of like the reality. I think they're scared to run some of the stuff with Russ because he won't see over the middle of the field. And whether that's warranted or not, I don't think that's an excuse to not call your plays. So that's a major beef that I have with them. I think that's laziness by the coaching staff. I think it's honestly pretty cowardly, to be honest. And I think that if you had that kind of fear with Russ running specific concepts, specific plays, man, this guy was not cheap. And I'm not going to go all the way into this with the cap stuff, but like that was an $11 million cap hit, right? And you got 3 games out of it.
And like the guy that is also in the QB room, who you also decided to sign, Jameis Winston, will throw like he'll do all the stuff you want him to do in the offense for better or for worse. You won't have to move away from the scheme that you actually want to run. Like we were talking about, throwing like concepts just over the middle of the field. That's totally gone away. At least this week, it was super obvious in the play calling that Daboll didn't really draw anything up for anything over the middle of the field because Russ just can't see it. Weeks 1 and 2, he did a little bit, but even in week 2 when Russ had the giant game, it was all like short game, Malik Yak, Wandale Yak, and then there were the 3 deep touchdowns he had, one in the red zone, which were all nice throws, but again, just not a lot in the middle of the field. And like if the plan was to always pull the plug on whichever vet QB was going to be through 4 weeks, I'd much rather it have been Jameis and just like let Daboll and Kafka do their full thing with the offense than cater to a guy who, like you said, not a cheap contract. This team is not good enough to be just letting that money not go to waste per se, but to be kind of like careless with that money. I'll definitely call it that.
Yeah.
So like we can get into more of the cap stuff later, but if that was, I just don't get the point of Russ on this team if we were going to pull the plug anyway through 4 games. And obviously it's coming a little bit earlier now than even we thought.
Another aspect of this is being the team that was supposedly super in on Jaxson Dart, right? Like I know there was some smoke about like the Rams being fans of him. There was some smoke about who was the other team? I'm forgetting the other team right now. But there was apparently another team that liked Jaxson Dart, right? They weren't super like we're gonna take him top 15 or else he would have gone
was
there.
The Steelers?
I don't fully remember, and I don't want to say something that's just wrong.
Yeah.
But this team, the way that it has been made seem to us, was all over Jaxson Dart. Brian Daboll, all over Jaxson Dart. And granted, when I say that, I'm not saying it as like some big, vote of confidence that Brian Daboll is a fan of your game. Let me just say that. But with them being so in on Jaxson Dart, you talk to this guy at every single public scouting event, the Combine, the Senior Bowl. I'm pretty sure that they had more than 1, probably more than 2, likely more than 3 workouts with him. Because this is not just a quarterback. Like this is the first round quarterback prospect in the NFL. You're going to see him a bunch of times. They sat him down at the Combine. They didn't just watch him play, right? They talked to him. They brought him into the meeting room. They asked him about schemes. I'm sure they asked him about schemes when they brought him into their facility. I'm sure that when they looked at his film, they asked themselves the question, would this kid be able to play year 1? Would this kid be able to play week 2 of year 1? Or was he more of like a week 11 year 1 type of kid? And if you did all of this due diligence through 4 months of draft process and you still come away thinking, okay, we need to sign Russ, we need to sign Jameis, because if Russ isn't doing well, we want to have James to throw in there. And then your read on Dart is so wrong that he becomes the backup. That you wasted your time because you got the wrong read on the kid, first of all. He was ready. You didn't think he'd be ready, and now you wasted $11 million of cap money because of it. That bothers me. Like that grinds my gears because you don't see other front offices doing that stuff. You don't see a team like, granted, this is a different situation, but a team like the Browns do that stuff. They drafted Dylan Gabriel. They drafted Shedeur Sanders. Yeah, they knew neither of them were starting. And granted, they went third round, they went fifth round. I get that. But they brought back Joe Flacco, who played well for them last season. If they wanted to get a guy for 3 games and they wanted 2 of them, why couldn't you get Joe Flacco and Jameis Winston? Much cheaper. Much cheaper. What did Russ give you that Joe Flacco couldn't? He gave you 3 deep shots against Dallas? Did Russ give you something in the run game? No. They ran QB draw for 2 yards. Fucking give him a round of applause. Like, what? This just all seems so like they went for a name because they wanted to go for a name. And at the time it felt like that, but I talked myself into it because what am I going to do? Be a negative Nancy the whole time? Like, I don't want to do that to myself. I'm sorry. I'm not going to have that negative outlook on this season because I want to be a fan of this team. But you look at how he limited the playbook, how he didn't really give anything in the run game besides maybe they over pursue twice the game and he picks up 6 yards. Congrats. Was that worth cutting out so much of the playbook that Joe Flacco could easily be running because he's easily running it in Cleveland? Or is that $11 million for 3 games really worth like going into the season and not being totally sure if Jaxson Dart's the backup, but like whatever, it's fine. And maybe Jameis plays the whole season. Looking back on it, it's crazy to me that they thought it was that big of a deal to get Russ and Jameis in here at the price point that they've had to bring in for Russ. Like, that has been.
And Russ was the second signing too, right?
Jameis
of the
was
2.
Correct.
And James's cap hit is like $4 million. It's like $2.5 million for this year, something like that. It's 4 for 8.
I
sorry,
looked it up, but it's
4 a year. I think it's
deal.
$8 million a year over 2 years. But regardless of what it is, like, it's unfortunate because it's just a microcosm of what the entire regime has been like since they came in. Like, the first year, a lot of the small like micro adjustments were not noticed because we were winning, right? Like the lack of attention to detail, which I'll talk about in a little bit, didn't show up, right? Then when we started losing the next year, stuff like, I don't know, our fucking kicker getting injured in warmups for the second year in a row, and for the second year in a row, we have no backup plan, and it seems like we're totally caught off guard by the whole situation. And it's just been a common theme of this front office of Joe Shane and Brian Daboll since they've come in. And it's really interesting because they always preached like attention to detail when they started here. And since then, it's just evolved into something that looks like it did on Sunday, which is frankly like a disaster of a product. You're putting up we put up 9 points on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah. And they've preached throughout the draft process. And you could go back to Hard Knocks and you can hear this phrase repeated more times than I can count with my 2 hands. Smart, tough, dependable. But you keep Graham Gano on a deal where you could cut him for a $3.5 million cap saving after the week of a game was maybe a go, maybe not a go. You don't know. How is that smart, tough, and dependable? Like that's
even before then, man.
Does not line up with your mantra. And then you go back into this season with it. And granted, they didn't know he was hurt because he got hurt in warmups. That is the risk that you run when you have him on the roster.
And that's what happens
almost 40
when you baby a dude all offseason. And then, like, he kicked one 50-yard field goal. I think it was against the Bills in preseason. They were like, oh, yeah, He's good to go.
He
This
was
dude
very
missed like
entertaining.
11 games last year, or however many it was, and he's missed like over 60% of his games since he's been a Giant. And like I said a couple minutes ago, this team is not talented enough or good enough for that money to be wasted and just carelessly spent.
It was bad enough that when we were going through the 53, I legitimately thought Daniel Bellinger would be cut for the likes of Chris Manhurts. Like, I thought that was going to be the cap saving move so that they
Yeah,
could keep Graham Gano. And thank God that didn't happen because Daniel Bellinger continues whenever he sees the field, whether it's a big impact or a small impact, he makes an impact. And I will not stop banging the drum like Dez does when he's on here with me for
good
him
player, man.
to get a bigger role in this offense. It's asinine. It's mind-boggling. Like
It's just it's a
there
consistent theme though. It's unfortunate. Like I think that's the main reason that we well, that's a story for a different day, but they have to go. Is what I will digress to.
well, now that we went like a teeny bit off topic with the dart stuff,
Yeah.
but I've been waiting to jump into this. So another week of data in this NFL season, right? And I wanted to go through now that Russ is officially not the starter anymore.
God
What
bless.
what could Russ's $11 million cap hit have gone towards for the Giants? So
Laugh through the pain.
I'm not even gonna look at linebackers because this list triples if I include linebackers. But
Hmm.
I'm going to talk about a center. I'm going to talk about 4 guards, 3 guards really, because one of them is got paid a huge bag and he's kind of an ass. But I'll just mention him just because. So Aaron Banks from the Niners got a 4-year, I believe, $76 million deal from the Packers. Has he been good? No. But his cap hit this year is $9 million. I'm not going to complain too much about that. I'm just going to make a note of it because he was a good player before when he was in San Fran. And obviously, a team like the Packers, a contender, a true contender, thought it was a good decision to go and pay him. Maybe just a rough start to the season. We'll see. Will Freeze from the Colts to the Vikings. Could you pick 2
This
better
one
lines to go back and forth from?
this one makes me so angry.
So Will Freeze is. I had this pulled up, and now I don't have it pulled up, and we'll stall for 5 seconds while I pull it up now.
He was signed for very cheap. While Con pulls this up, a lot of
Yeah,
the dudes on this list are not making a ton of money.
and even if they are making a ton of money, my point is they manipulated cap for Javon Holland. They manipulated cap for Paulson Adebo. They've manipulated cap for guys like Jermaine,
Yep.
guys like
GVR.
like there is more than one way to manipulate cap. They did that for Jameis, and granted, it was small. It was a $3 million hit this year, $5 million hit next year, but they manipulated it, so they know how to do it clearly. Will Freeze, out of 95 guards in the NFL, ranked 28th in overall pass blocking. Out of 95 guards in the NFL, ranked 32nd in overall run blocking. I think he could play for the Giants.
I think we'd use that a little bit.
Like, and that guy this year has a $5.6 million cap hit. Yeah, he got a big deal. I think it was about 5 years, $80 million. Guess what? You play with monopoly goddamn money sometimes in the NFL. It is what it is. We see teams in the division do it every single year. Hello, Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, I just don't know how many times I'm going to get on this podcast and say the exact same thing without annoying myself. And I texted you this earlier today. You were like, what's going to be the topics on the pod today? Well, it's going to be the Giants quarterback situation, and it's going to be going through the offseason moves that have been wrong. And that's been the script for nearly all 45 of these episodes. Like, it's the God's honest truth. So yeah, that's annoying. Kevin Zeitler, former Giant, who we let walk because we thought he had no more juice left. Not only does he go to Detroit and have a great couple of years there, he goes
Yeah.
to Tennessee. Rookie quarterback needs to lean on a veteran guard. Who do we sign? Kevin Zeitler for a $9 million cap hit. Overall, ranked the 27th best guard out of 95 qualified players in the NFL. You think he could play for the Giants right now? I think so. And like, granted, Greg Van Roten has the history with Carmen Brasillo. Cool, man. Happy for you. Happy for both of you. I care about winning this goddamn football game. Like, what is so? Maybe you think he's really good in the scheme, and maybe he beats out John Runyon. Who cares if John Runyon doesn't play? Who cares? The only one who cares is his goddamn mother. Like, that's it, man. That's all. This is the only team in the NFL where you do not have to earn your spot year in, year out, unless you're Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen on the Chiefs and the Bills. Like, it's crazy. They saw mediocrity and said, you guys can have at it another year. Ryan Kelly. Remember how we talked about this guy, Will Freeze, went from the Colts to the Vikings? Guess what Ryan Kelly did? Former Colt on the Vikings. He's grading out as a top 10 center this season.
Yep.
2-year, $18 million contract with a $5.6 million cap hit. And if you add it up, $5.6 million for Ryan Kelly, $5.6 million for Will Freeze. You add that up, that's 11.2. Russell Wilson had an $11 million cap hit. That's a starting center to push John Michael Schmitz and a starting guard to bench Greg Van Roten. Thank you. Effective use of your money. Great job. And if you think the Will Freeze contract is an albatross, well, I have to tell you this. Yes, they manipulated his cap for this season. It's a lower cap hit. Guess what? If he's bad next year in 2026, they can cut him before the 2027 season, and they will have no dead cap. So, yeah. Did I think in the offseason we did a decent job? I'm not going to lie. I was on here saying we did. But it's not my job to be right about every single decision. I am somebody who follows the game at a decently high level and tries to do my best to see what will the Giants do? What do they need to do? What would I do? I don't get paid to evaluate NFL talent. I don't get paid to evaluate college talent. I don't get paid to put together a 53-man roster. But Joe Schoen does. So if I get something wrong and I look back on it and I'm like, probably not the right move, there's no stakes involved in that for me. But there's stakes involved with that for Joe Schoen. And every single year, there's been moves in the moment. It's like, all right, I could see the logic behind that move. And in the end, what happens? Not the best value. Not the best player you could have got over there. Probably should have went this avenue. Every single year. And I'm just about fed up with it. Because I'm not going to sit here and lie like I said before. The process stuff, I don't always disagree. But I'm not supposed to be the guy who gets it right. I'm supposed to be the guy who, as a fan, sits back and says, wow, I have a good GM. When Leon Rose traded quickly for OG Anunoby, do you think I was happy? But no, now I sit back and I say, God, I have a good GM running my basketball team. The reality is I do not have a good GM running my football team, or else we'd have a starting center and a starting guard for the same price as our now backup quarterback. Rant is over.
First of all, excellent rant.
Thank you.
Excellent content. Secondly, lack of attention to detail, man. I'm just going to keep saying it. Like, we didn't even talk about the James Hudson stuff, which we don't have to, but I believe his cap hit is also around $3.5 million.
I'm sorry. I say it again.
I think his cap hit is also around like $3.5 million or something this year.
Yeah, around.
Just play Bo, like make competition's cool. He wasn't good. He obviously wasn't better than Bo. We got benched after like 5 fucking snaps in week 1. Sick $4 million there. And like I think your point about there being a lack of like competition is such an excellent point, and it so obviously shows in every week, basically every week of the season since the playoff year has been like, holy shit, one of these guys is so bad, and the other team is obviously targeting them every play, but they're not getting benched. And the money that we could have spent on an upgrade was wasted somewhere else for a random position, like a second backup quarterback or a starting left tackle who isn't playing after a week, or like not bringing in, like having fucking, I'm going on random tangents, but having like Deontay Banks and Cordell Flott rotate for the cornerback 2 position, like all of this stuff, like fucking Bobby Okereke, I'm gonna do this now.
Yeah, do that.
No,
I like this.
nothing speaks to, like, Daboll can talk all he wants about like his attention to detail, and like you see him yelling at guys and supposedly he's supposed to be making an impact. And then you watch on Sunday Night Football in front of the entire fucking world Bobby Okereke not bite the fucking football and secure a fumble, and you let Patrick Mahomes literally rip the ball from your hands to recover his own fumble because you didn't have the fucking wherewithal. You're a 12-year vet in this league. You're a captain, or you're supposed to be, and you can't jump on a fumble and secure the ball. And whether that's him, it's a combination of him and the coaching staff just not like drilling in the small details, and it comes back to bite us every single week.